everybody, and welcome to Hemingford Legacy Bond podcast. I have some very smart and opinionated gentlemen here with me today, Ryan Schladewitz and Lee Woltman. All right, so we're going to get into this, talk about the Hemingford Legacy Bond. First talking point, modular classrooms.
Well, I do know that they were new when I was in 5th and 6th grade. We were the first class, I believe, to have those modulars.
That'd be pretty cool then.
Yeah, and I think they were used then too, from what I understand. So we didn't get new ones either. So, but yeah, I think those are one things definitely have been needed to be updated for quite some time, in my opinion.
And yeah, because they weren't supposed to last. I mean, we aren't supposed to still have them this long. Like they were only supposed to be a short-term deal. And at that point, I guess you would have been in school, but do you remember what the long-term, if those were the short-term, what was the long-term?
I have no idea. I did not know what their intentions were with that. I mean, I knew they were wanting to, we had a big class. I think I graduated with 36 kids. One of the bigger classes come through Hemingford. So they had to accommodate some bigger classes. And I think that's kind of what brought that in there, but I don't know what their long-term vision was after that.
So as a bigger class in elementary, because I did not go to elementary here and I also graduated with a bigger class. Do you remember, did you feel like the elementary classes were very small with that many kids in there? It's been a few years.
It's been a few years. I mean, I think there's times it felt crowded, but I think as a kid, when you're small, it doesn't seem as small as, it does for adults. I do remember the library the library was upstairs when I
really?
So the library was upstairs in elementary, where the principal's office was over there when you walk up the stairs to the left. That's where the library used to be. So it was a lot bigger library then. And now it's definitely gotten a lot smaller since.
Well, yeah, because now it's elementary and high school together.
Yeah, because the upstairs of the elementary only used to be 6th grade. It was the only classes up there. So that kind of felt like you're at the top of the ladder of the elementary because you were up on the 2nd floor. And 5th grade was moved to the modulars. And then the 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and all that were down on the main floor.
Yeah. Well, and the classrooms now versus when we went to elementary, there's so much more technology that's used in the classroom, so many more supplies. And I don't know that the desks have necessarily changed sizes. I think they're the same, but now I feel like the teachers use so many more resources, and a lot of them will need a desk. I think they're called a kidney desk. For a smaller pullout where they can work with 3 or 4 kids at the same time. But I feel like every time that we add something new that is great for education, that it takes up so much space, and that's not what these classrooms were originally built for.
Oh, when they originally redid the red zone, and I may not have paid attention as much as I should have, but they were talking about how they wanted an inclusive, all the buildings. So nobody had to go outside, and security reasons, you have to go through the office, got to be buzzed in, buzzed out. While we still kept
the modulars
out back. They're the Wild West.
Yeah.
Just any door goes open. There's no real system of communication other than what I have anyway. Talk back and forth.
No, and actually, we had a teacher point that out, that when they, let's say a kid needs to go to the library or needs to go to the nurse or something, that when they leave the modulars, the next time that they're on camera is when they push the button to go into the main building. So I mean, a lot can happen in between that area right now.
Yeah. And, as a parent too, I guess my kid's in the modular right now, and it'd be nice if they were within the school system itself, just to for the safety aspect. And I guess if do I fully trust my kid when he is told he's okay, he gets the permission to go, that he's just not going to run off and go to the playground and hang out, and nobody knows until someone realizes he's not back and they're having a good time. I mean, there's that concern. It'd be nice if they're all inside the same building anyway.
And I understand that as they get older, such as high school, walking up to the shop, that's a little different than asking an elementary kid to walk back and forth through a building.
Yeah.
I think the maturity and expectations are a little different in those. So, I mean, to think that our shop is going to be connected to our school isn't really part of the plan, I suppose, which isn't a big deal. The age group that uses it should be appropriate, but walking around the modulars, some of the younger kids, I don't think it's quite the best idea for their interest or anybody else's.
Yeah, and there was also the point that was made that somebody could just go and approach the modulars without anybody in the front knowing, right? Because for the elementary and everything, they have to be buzzed in. But the modulars, I mean, theoretically, you could just come from the north or come from over there and nobody would even know. So that was a huge concern. One thing that I like about this bond, and I don't know if you guys worry about it as much as I do, is drop off and pickup. I really like that this takes everything over to the west side, because as a parent, like I get so scared dropping kids off, especially during sugar beet season. Like I feel like we have a lot of semis that don't necessarily look out as much as they should, and I think it's just kind of it's really hard for pickup and drop off, really congested area on a busy highway.
I wouldn't put the blame on the trucks. They're usually adults driving them, but there's children that, I mean, they're excited to run around, school's out, they're playing. It'd be much easier, less congestion if they were off a main highway, which does have a lot of truck and other traffic.
Well, you're right.
But I agree, but I think also you're not going to totally eliminate that problem either, because being on the west side, pick up and drop off, I imagine the people who park by the parking lot at the South Campus, they're still going to have to walk across the highway to get to the West Century as well. And the kids who walk from homes to school are still going to have to go there. So I think, you'll eliminate some of that problem, but there'll still be there.
I just hope that where that drop off is, where there's cars parking, dropping off, leaving, as kids are trying to cross the street, maybe there's just less kids in the way.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, there could be in danger because it removes, say, half of them.
It does.
And then it's same way, we still have our crosswalk guards. And if we continue with those, I think it should reduce the traffic anyways.
Yeah.
Hope so.
Yeah. No, I think so. And maybe that will be more of the main parking lot though too, right? So the west side, because right now it's just kind of a few people park over there. Most do park over by South Campus, so maybe that will become.
It might move. You could move a lot of the parking that way if that's the door you got to come in.
Yes.
A lot more room to park over there than across the street.
Absolutely. Okay, next thing. Gym overcrowding and limited athletic space. The gym is overbooked. It's used for PE, sports, assemblies, and community events. And we don't have a dedicated wrestling space for girls wrestling specifically. Limited locker rooms and not enough restrooms. Thoughts on that?
I would like another gym. Is it realistic? I don't think so. I didn't go to Hemingford school. We had a gym. We didn't have a small gym and a big gym. We just had one gym. We may not have had as many youth activities that I think take up a lot of time also. But as far as high school goes, I'm indifferent. I like that we have two gyms. I think the small gym gets a bad rap and they say it's not usable space, but when I was in high school, I would have loved to have another little gym to use. It was better than we ran around the halls for exercise when we rotated. So we didn't have an extra gym when we needed. So I'm indifferent. It's not a breaking point for me. I do think the girls need a space for their wrestling. They've earned it. They put in just as much work as anybody else. and it's a growing sport. It's one of the fastest growing sports. They're going to need more room every year in the near future.
It's kind of, I'm split on this one because, 5 years ago we could have had this done, but there's a lot of people who didn't want a gym. And I think that's why it fell flat. And now with what they're wanting to do with the gym, I do like the fact the bathrooms in the front by the concession stands are terribly small, and there's limited space there. And I kind of like what I get in the first modulars. I was a junior in high school when we had the new locker rooms.
Oh.
So I got to transition from the old to the new as well with the wrestling room and all that. So they used to have the wrestling room up top there, its own little dungeon space up top there. And then they redid the locker rooms in the addition. So we got to be part of the whole transition out from the old into this new. Our weight room used to be down in the dungeon in the small gym. That's where we lifted weights, which to me is kind of nostalgia, kind of cool, like pumping iron, like Arnold would be pretty sweet. But for real, like it's just, and but the gym, the new weight room, we thought it was just the best thing ever since. And I do realize with women's wrestling growing so much, and I didn't realize that they wrestled separate from the boys. I thought it was kind of in the same place. So I'm a huge proponent of women's wrestling. Being a wrestler myself, and I think it's great that they've split them up, just because just seeing women excel in their own sport is great. So there's definitely improvements need to be made, and I think they're trying to split the hairs between some people who don't want the gym, but also realize things need to be updated as well. There's a lot, I believe, that need to be updated. That, like I said, that front entrance is terrible, and we were talking a little bit off camera about the ADA compliance. Those bathrooms, I don't believe are ADA compliant, are they?
In the gym?
In the gym. No, they're not.
No, we would just have the one that is a family room that most people don't even know exists. So we have one, but even at that, it's not great.
Yeah. No. And so I do see there's needs to be updated in this. And I think this does cover a lot of those needs as well. And, I know there's people who want the gym. I don't personally think we need a newer gym. If we can improve the one which we have, I like that idea better. And just to save some money on the taxpayers is kind of, I think, why they're going this route.
Yeah, I agree. And it sounds like they have another multi-purpose space, with a small stage on it. They're going to use as a lunchroom, and can also take some of the weight off of the gyms, some of the performing arts, some of the recesses, some of
for sure.
The things that all fight for time in a large gym. So where it's a multi-use space, I think that will be more beneficial, especially, uncongest the lunch schedule. Plus they can use it for the concerts and for other large meetings where you need 200 plus people without basketball hoops and volleyball net in the way.
What did they say that new area was going to hold? Like
250
seated?
So that's it, and I could be wrong, but I believe that's using the the circular tables, because right now the lunchroom holds just right over 100, and that's more figuring like little bodies. That's like elementary bodies.
100 in that space would be tight.
It is very tight. So I say that number loosely because that's little bodies crammed in there.
So I definitely think it would alleviate some of the stress on the gym, which I know the floors in the gym always get torn up from you. So if you can eliminate some of that and reduce some costs on the floors and taking care of those wood floors, it would definitely benefit as well.
And I like that the weight room would get moved because it's going to get significantly bigger. I think that's pretty awesome because that'll be in between the two gyms. We had some people talking about how much the weights classes have increased in the last few years, probably because we have an amazing teacher for it. But that's a big need because they do need more room for those classes. So we just have a lot more kids interested in weights, which I think is awesome.
Fantastic.
And give them more room. And again, that will be in between the two gyms, which I think is great. Because I did not love when we would go over to, when I was in school, of course, I only went here my junior, senior year, but that we would have to change shoes, go to the little gym, put on our shoes, and then we would switch with the big gym, switch with the boys halfway through practices, then we'd switch back again. Like it really was a lot of waste of time. But this will have everything under the same roof. So I really like that.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, with that multi-purpose room, will really help out with winter sports, especially with wrestling. Yeah, because I think that at first they tried to do girls and boys wrestling in the same area, and it was just too many kids.
Yeah.
Too many kids, and they need their own space.
Yes,
So I believe they did that in the little gym. But then the little gym was taken away from a lot younger kids' sports that could have been done right after school and different things like that. And then it also pushed back the kids' little junior wrestling that our kids were going to 8:00 at night.
Yeah.
For little kid wrestling. And that's kind of hard on kindergarten, first, second graders to be practicing until 8:00, but that's the only time that it was open to be able to do this. So I think this bond would tremendously help out with that and give them the more space.
Maybe skipping here a little bit, but just looking at this map, we talked about getting rid of the modulars because of their safety aspect. We're adding a bunch of classrooms. Like we're already 5, 6, 7 classrooms short of space that we need. So not only this will replace the modulars with much larger modern classrooms. It'll give us additional
12 classes.
They're adding 12, aren't they?
Yeah. So I mean that's huge because I mean we're so short on space and we have so much shared space and it's disruptive and it's not a great learning environment. I mean, you can say, well, we've always done it that way. Well, that's a very dangerous way of looking at anything. It's where everybody deserves an education, a high quality education. This, I think, was a big step in that direction to continue giving it here in Hemingford.
Yeah.
And I also like the fact that the library will be much bigger because, again, we have our elementary and high school together. And I did not realize that our kids that are doing distant learning in the college classes are doing that in the library. So it's been very frustrating for them because they'll be on their class and they'll have elementary kids. I mean, because elementary kids can go in there and get books and check things out. But that happens a lot when they're on their classes.
Yeah, it definitely has gotten smaller since I said when it was upstairs, it was a big area. And they've definitely had to use that space for other things. So it can't just be one big library, but it'd be nice to bring back a bigger area for that. In a world dominated by electronics, I think books are still very important for kids to read.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
And it seems like we're kind of getting away from that as small as our library's gotten. And I think it needs to come back a little bit,
Yes, absolutely. One thing we haven't talked about is the addition on the ag building. So it's looking at doubling that size because the one classroom that is up there is really tiny. I'm not a welder or I don't know. I don't do woods and stuff, but I'm guessing it's not safe to have those so close to each other. The sawdust and things, I don't know.
Well,
but
I think it's just like all these other classrooms. We've outgrown the space. We need more room. And you can't go to many conventions about rural Nebraska without someone saying, how do we get people to come back? Well, if there is one classroom that will lead the front of this, in my mind, to get people to come back to rural Nebraska, it's in the ag shop, where, especially in this area, we're dominated by ag. There's a large base of the professionals in this county school district that could potentially get their start in that building
without college.
Yes.
And that's a big deal. The trade jobs are dying.
Yes.
Like, I mean, electrician, somebody, a construction guy, plumber. I mean, this is an area that can kind of open the door to that world, not specifically for like plumbing, but just getting their hands dirty, working with their hands and realizing there's money to be made. Like, I'm not anti-college, but I mean, those trade jobs, I mean, you could start right now. Anybody could,
Well-
and be successful at it if you're good.
We've probably all seen those memes and everything on social media that state like, why didn't they teach us this in school?
Yeah.
Taxes, in other words, like, why didn't they teach you how to use a saw properly, how to weld, how to wire something,
Yeah.
basic automotive stuff, all the things that you'd learn in this space if used appropriately. And I'm way more excited about an expansion on this than I ever would have on a gym.
Yeah.
Because I'm
That'll
The
benefit you in the
ratio-
that'll benefit them longer than the gym will. I
the
mean, even
ratio,
just your own house, fixing your own
Yeah.
issues.
this is lifelong stuff. You take the ratio of professionals that come out of that building versus the professionals
yeah.
that come out of our gym is pretty distorted. I mean,
Yep.
so we should be putting our money where our mouths are and where our backbone is. It's right there in that ag shop.
Yeah.
So I'm very glad they're putting that on there. That's very, very much needed.
No, I think that's a pretty awesome thing. I obviously grew up in ag. I did not ever learn how to weld or to do much with woods at all, but I still did a lot of agronomy, animal science, even went and got a degree in animal science. But I would say that that my degree in pursuing animal science came out of an ag shop, right? Like that's where I got that spark. And even realized that I could make that a career, even though I don't, but could have. I did for a while. How about that? But yeah, there's just a lot of things that you can learn new. And then it's also one of those things, you don't know what you don't know. I mean, like, you don't know that you're not interested in it because you've never you've never had any exposure to it. So the more that we can give those kids exposure, especially to different trades, I think is fantastic. Fantastic. And that's, even if they find something, kids that don't love the academics of school, but maybe they find that they love something in the ag shop, like that could be highly motivating for them to show up and to do their best. So we kind of talked about safety, accessibility. We talked a little bit about the second floor on the elementary. The elementary, I believe the first graduating class from Hemingford in that building was 1925. So we are literally 100 years this year in that same building, which I think is awesome. I do really like the fact that the bond keeps the original elementary building. I think that's one of my favorite things about it. But the elementary has definitely served its time, and I do think we need to make it safer with an elevator, have another way to get up on the second floor. I believe that the bond would have the second floor more be as teachers' lounges and more support services. So for like speech therapy, PT, different things like that. Which I think would be much better than having actual classrooms up there. What's your guys' thoughts on that?
I think, a building that old, like we're running into this problem with our church, the Hemingford Congregational Church too, with being outdated so much. The insurance companies are really having a hard time wanting to even insure these old buildings right now without a major facelift. And we are coming to that crossroads, unfortunately, with this school as well, with the possibility liabilities of somebody falling down the stairs or not given the ability for elevator access to handicapped kids. And just you're coming to a point where it could end up turning worse than we want it to. Mm-hmm. And in order to be covered properly, I think the school should do this. It's definitely needed for the building. I mean, it's just an old building. It just needs redone a little bit. And
because the bond would make they would combine the classrooms. So 2 classrooms on the main floor would become 1 classroom, which would give that added space, and which would be very beneficial, because I believe that the plan is possibly to have the 5th and 6th grade be over there. So we'd have kind of a little bit of a middle school would be on that first floor, and significantly bigger classrooms. So that would be really, 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 really beneficial, I think, for the learning environment on that.
And where it is 100-year-old building, you go back to the bond, and I know people, there's gonna be some pushback because it's gonna raise taxes or on certain folks. And you just think most of them went to that 100-year-old building and graduated out of there. Someone paid money for them to do that. And for 100 years, it's been used in great use. But now someone who isn't in school is going to have to again pay for somebody else to use a facility to make it modern. Because at one time, I don't know what they had before this building.
The elementary,
Yeah, what?
it was a little building, it was a little white building up on the hill.
Well, there you go. So it was a huge improvement for a learning environment for everybody. And we sometimes forget, it's like someone has to pay the dues.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I mean, or fortunately, it's us. But 100 years, if we can.
But somebody also paid for us to do.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
somebody paid our dues. Now it's our time to pay the dues for the younger kids. And just so they keep on getting the same experiences we did, have a good education and a safe environment.
Mhm.
And I think Hemingford kind of has this, everybody views Hemingford as a really good public school system for our county and the area. But we do know there's a lot of families in Alliance bringing their kids here as well for that reason, and to continue the good education with good teachers as well. I mean, you got to have good facilities. Are you gonna? Yeah, I know he's not saying, but like, are you gonna be able to bring Nick Saban to coach football at Hemingford? No, they want good facilities as well. They want to have the ability and good teachers. That we're always cycling through teachers as well. But if you be able to get some really good teachers who got a brand new facility up to date, then it's going to benefit our kids in the long run as well. With that competition, with where do you want to teach? Where do you want to bring your kids to school at? And that will help out a lot with doing such certain things like this.
Yeah. And I hope it's viewed as it is for the kids, but it's also for the teachers.
Yeah.
We're investing in them too, to hopefully make their jobs easier, to make it more beneficial for them. All these things. I mean, it's not, yes, it's kids, they go hand in hand. Hopefully with a newer, modern, you continue to have the great talent that we've had.
Yep.
And just year over year for the next generations, we'll be able to recruit and keep great talented people to teach.
Well, like Jenny was saying earlier, is like we were having to move teachers in their classrooms to accommodate some of our handicap, and that just takes time out of their schedule in order for teaching, and then just moving and reorganizing and retrying to put everything in their room and get everything set up. We're taken away from that because we're trying to accommodate, handicapped kids or whatnot, and like, if we don't have to do that, it just allows a teacher to focus on teaching and not these other extracurricular activities that they shouldn't have to be doing.
Yes.
Yep. Very good point. All right. Any final words from either one of you about the bond? And
I heard it, someone else is saying, but it's not everything we want, but it's as close to everything we need as we could possibly get. And I mean, that really struck a chord with me. I mean, there's a lot of wants and a lot of opinions, but when it boils down to what we need, this really covers it. And they're being fiscally responsible about it. And I really like what they've done. I know they've spent an extreme amount of time on it. And I think it's well thought. I think it's a good idea.
I think that they listened a lot from the last go around that kind of fell when that didn't go through. Excluding the new gym was one of those, but they focus on what we absolutely need in this deal, and going to present it that way and doing their best job to get the information out. I didn't think I'd be part of this at all. I didn't.
Same.
I went to a meeting trying to get information, and I ended up being on a committee over this deal. So
and a podcast.
Like, here I am, man. But I want information. And I think they're trying their best in every aspect to let everybody know exactly what we're going to do, what we plan on doing, what it's going to cost, and and allow everybody to make that decision. And I think it's good of our district. I think if I remember correctly, they don't have any loans. Everything's paid off right now. They have $2.7 million set aside in savings. And so, I mean, they're financially smart right now. They've but they've gotten everything taken care of to pursue this. And, I think, it's the tax is the big issue, but it's hard. It's hard. I mean, it's hard to go. I mean, I think Alliance's district they're paying a lot more than we are right now. And so, in these other schools and all that, so, it's just, unfortunately, it's going to come to that point one of these days. And me as a taxpayer, I guess I would rather pay for the bond issue than to have something happen in the school and then we have to pay for a court settlement.
Yep. And then still have to put
we still have to do that, because I'm big on the ADA stuff. It's got to be compliant. I'd like all the kids inside the building. I would like better classrooms for the teachers and just these better facilities for accommodate women's wrestling, and the bigger weight room to focus on health in a world that's very lethargic.
Mental health. It helps.
It's a huge mental health. Yeah. I mean, and so I think there's a lot of benefit to going this route. And, if you want nice things, you kind of have to pay for them. And I'll just let you know, I'm neither for or against this right now. I'm just getting information, and that's what I'm pursuing right now. So, but I see so much need that we do need. I see more needs that they want than they're ever telling us wants they want. It's a very need-based bond right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. And yes, again, there's some open houses, school tours on April 7th at 7 and April 23rd at 7 p.m. at the school.